Doctor has twin lawsuits over psilocybin for cancer patients, and they're going to both be argued this summer. Two separate lawsuits on legal access to therapeutic psilocybin are advancing towards next steps in federal court. The appeals panel this week scheduled oral arguments for later this summer. Is of a Washington state doctor seeking to legally use the psychedelic to treat cancer patients in end-of-life care. Lawsuit brought by Dr. Sunil Agarwal and his clinic, the Advanced Integrated Medical Science Institute, centers on whether the federal government must allow certain patients access to psilocybin under state and federal right-to-try laws. Laws intend to give patients with terminal conditions the opportunity to try investigational medications that have not been approved for general use. Garwal and Ames contend those laws should allow a legal way for end-of-life patients to access psilocybin. Lawyers for the federal government disagree, of course. In a brief filed to the court in April, attorneys for the DEA argued that the federal right-to-try law, signed into law in 2018, does not provide exemptions from CSA restrictions. As DEA explained, the Right-to-Try Act does not provide any exemptions from the CSA or its implementing regulations. It does not give the DEA authority to waive CSA requirements. Though psilocybin remains a Schedule I controlled substance, granted breakthrough therapy status by the Food and Drug Administration. Garwal and Ames have spent years pursuing various legal and regulatory pathways to allow the clinic to use psilocybin in palliative care. The clinic has presented DEA with multiple proposals to legally cultivate or otherwise obtain psilocybin to treat patients under the right to try. The agency has so far denied them all. DEA has rejected each request but has never addressed the arguments that Dr. Agarwal has raised in support of them. DEA wants to disclaim authority to grant Dr. Agarwal access. It must provide a reasoned explanation for how that decision comports with the CSA and the agency's own precedent. 8 U.S. states, as well as Washington, D.C., have filed a friend of the court or amicus brief in support of Ames' effort to use psilocybin under these laws. Many of the same states filed a previous amicus brief in 2021 that said DEA's rejection of the patient application amounted to overreach by the agency. CSA was intended to combat drug trafficking and abuse, as the latest amicus brief led by Attorney of Washington, led by the Office of Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson. It is irrelevant whether a Schedule I substance has a currently accepted medical use under the CSA in the context of its uses authorized by the Right to Try Act. Agarwal and Ames have been working since at least 2020 to find a way to legally obtain psilocybin for patients in palliative care. That means end-of-life care. Initially seeking to win permission under these laws. DEA first rebuffed the request. Agarwal sued. In early 2022, a federal appellate panel dismissed the lawsuit, opining that the court lacked jurisdiction because DEA's rejection of Agarwal's administrative request didn't constitute a reviewable agency action. DEA denied Agarwal's petition in September and rejected the waiver the next month. The doctor's Ninth Circuit cases challenged both decisions. As a result, the Federal Health Agency last month acknowledged on its website the potential benefits that psychedelic substance might provide, including treatment for alcohol use disorder, anxiety, and depression. The agency also highlighted psilocybin research being funded by the federal government into the drug's effects on pain, migraines, psychiatric disorders, and various other conditions. Findings of another recent study suggested that the use of full-spectrum psychedelic mushroom extract has a more powerful effect than chemically synthesized psilocybin alone, which could have pretty big implications for psychedelic-assisted therapy. AMA published another recent study that similarly contradicted commonly held beliefs about the potential risks of psychedelic use, finding the substances may be associated with lower rates of psychotic symptoms among adolescents. Also, results in a clinical trial published by the AMA in December suggest efficacy and safety of psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy for treatment of bipolar disorder, a mental health condition often associated with debilitating and difficult-to-treat depressive episodes. The association also published research last August that found people with major depression experienced clinically significant, sustained reduction in their symptoms after just one dose of psilocybin. In September of last year, researchers at Johns Hopkins and Ohio State published a report that linked psilocybin use with persistent reductions in depression, anxiety, and alcohol misuse. All of these results are highly consistent with a growing body of clinical trial, behavioral pharmacology, and epidemiological data on psilocybin, authors of the study said. Overall, these data provide an important window in the resurgence of public interest in classic psychedelics and the outcomes of contemporaneous increases in naturalistic psilocybin use. Last August, another study from the AMA found that people with major depression experienced clinically significant sustained reduction in their symptoms after just one dose of psilocybin. A survey by Canadian researchers published in October said psilocybin use can help ease psychological distress in people who have adverse experiences as children. Researchers said psilocybin appears to offer particularly strong benefits to those with a severe childhood adversity. Canada, for its part, allowed 4 cancer patients in 2020 to become the nation's first people in decades to legally possess psilocybin after being granted permission by the country's health minister to use the substance for end-of-life care. Later that year, some healthcare professionals also gained the ability to legally possess and use psilocybin themselves in Canada for the same condition. So what we're seeing is, despite the DEA's entrenchment and really regressive attitude and backwards behavior, psilocybin is being shown to be a non-toxic and very beneficial substance with, just benefits all over the board, every way, shape, and form. This is Mathieu St. Germain for the High 9 News of Friday. I'm just going to get right to it since we're pretty much over schedule here and hear what you guys have to say. Jump in, guys.
Man, this is, overall, this is a good thing. This is a bad thing. I'm confused a little bit by this, Mathieu St. Germain.
Well, it's a good news with a ton of good studies showing efficacy in a bunch of different ways. And then the bad news is just the DEA dragging its feet and doing everything it can to keep the 60s era drug war alive.
So it's everything still the same. It's like we know that drugs are good and the DEA is just going to drag their feet and still try to do everything that they can do to stop it.
Yep, and it sounds like in probably in September we'll have updates on these 2 cases because they're going to begin the trials in August.
Amazing.
Really, the DEA just needs to be abolished. There's no real reason for it. Its founding was really as a cover for the CIA's hard drug smuggling operations. Even alluded to that and put it in the script of either Narcos 1 or 2. Kiki Camarena discovers that the CIA are the ones that are funneling all the cocaine in America, and the CIA tells him basically to back off. And that was before he was killed by the cartels, and basically killed because he was going to blow the lid off the fact that the cartels and the CIA have been working together since at least the 80s. Funnel cocaine into America, primarily into inner city environments, and trying to basically, Nixon and federally, and then Reagan in the state of California really got hip to the fact that they couldn't persecute the Students for a Democratic Society, the civil rights movement, the free speech movement, the anti-war movement, alternative health and hippie movements. What they could do was use psychedelics and cannabis as a nexus for prosecution to end these movements, because all of these movements, the Black Panthers, the American Indian movement, were exercising their rights to freedom of assembly, their rights to free speech, and weren't, other than these drugs, which were at the time, borderline legal or not very illegal, they weren't breaking the law. And so the DEA was formed as a cover for the CIA, as well as to help persecute and prosecute these elements that were resisting the fascist Fourth Reich takeover of the American government. And so I think it's well timed to just disband the DEA, use that money to feed pregnant mothers or house mentally ill indigent individuals, do something that's actually good for our country and our community. And I'm going to end by just saying society should be measured on how it treats the least among its members.
Yep.
And if you go outside today and you walk around and you see how the least among us are treated, I think you can agree with me that currently our society is failing in its mission to find a way to treat the least among us with compassion, with inclusion, so that we can once again be a great society.
Is it Minnesota, Rachelle, that offers like end of life care that allows you?
Rachelle had to leave.
Okay, I think it was Minnesota. It might have been Maine.
I could see Maine doing that. I could see Minnesota doing it too.
Yeah, I would definitely if
Oregon used to.
If I'm like stage 5, I'm about to go, whatever. Like I want to be with Mathieu St. Germain on another planet.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll come get high with you, whether you're going to die or not, Rico.
Silver surfing.
Oh, there we go. There we go. What do you think about this, Dr. T? You have any thoughts in closing up on this from the medical side on this?
Yeah. This reminds me of that article you shared with me with the AMA sort of saying that the war on drugs is over.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't really say that. That's what they need to say. But they're on their way to saying that the war on drugs is over. The DEA needs to go away. And we need to look at drug use and abuse in a different light, not as a criminal thing. So, say goodbye to the DEA. We can do a lot with the homeless, We can do a lot with substance abuse care with that money rather than trying to put people in jail.